The past is not dead. In fact, it's not even past. That's William Faulkner, and it really hits the nail on the head for our topic today. Welcome to the deep dive. You know how it works. We take a whole stack of sources, pull out the crucial bits, and basically give you a shortcut to being properly informed. Today, we're tackling something pretty fascinating, the incredible memory of civilizations, how these massive ancient cultural groups seem to remember history in a way that just dwarfs the lifespan of most countries. Our mission: to unpack this whole idea. We've got some great source material, including a critically discussed piece from AFP, and we're going to dig into what lets a civilization stick around for so long, and how that, deep memory still affects things today. If you want to really get global affairs, or maybe you're studying for the UPSC exams, this is vital stuff. History, IR, cultural strength that ticks all those boxes for prelims and mains.
Yeah, and to really get a handle on this, Samuel Huntington's idea from The Clash of Civilizations back in '96 is a good starting point. He called civilizations the ultimate human tribes. He saw them as these, really broad cultural entities, very different from nation states, which were more about politics and borders and often much newer. Civilizations, for Huntington, are bound by shared culture, history, maybe religion, stuff that lasts generations, even thousands of years. And that difference is key. So the big question we're looking at is, how does this long memory actually work? And what does it mean for us now?
Right. So nation states can pop up, change shape, even disappear entirely. How does a civilization hang on to its memory for so long? One of the sources puts it quite starkly, actually. It says, it is easy to carve out or erase nation states. That is not the case with a civilization, certainly not with an ancient one. It talks about civilizations living and surviving in creases, sort of hiding out during tough times, adapting, and then, boom, reasserting themselves centuries later. It's like a deep historical tide.
And history just backs us up again and again. Think about India. You've got 8 centuries under Islamic rule, then another 2 under the British. That's 1,000 years of major outside control. But India didn't just survive. It thrived and absolutely reasserted its unique identity after all that. It shows that political control, even for ages, doesn't necessarily kill that deep civilizational identity.
Wow, a millennium is a long time.
It really is. Or take Greece. It was under Ottoman or Turkish rule for about 400 years. We're talking from the mid-1400s, Constantinople falling in 1453, Athens in 1456, right through to the early 1800s. Most of Greece was under Ottoman control, 4 centuries. But then Greece reasserted itself. It wasn't just a new country emerging. It felt like an ancient civilization stepping back into the light. That's long-term memory in action.
Okay, so these are huge stretches of time.
Exactly. And there's an even older, maybe more pointed example from Greek history that shows how deep this can go. So 480 BC, the Persians, under King Xerxes, invade Greece and they burn Athens, the Acropolis included, a major trauma. Now jump forward exactly 150 years, 330 BC. Alexander the Great is invading Persia. And what does he do? He burns Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire. And the sources are explicit. It was to avenge the burning of Greek temples by the Persians 150 years later. That's not just politics. That's civilizational memory. Grievances passed down, shaping actions centuries later. Some things, it seems, just don't get forgotten.
That's incredible. A century and a half. It really drives home how different these entities are from, say, modern nation states. And our sources really zero in on Iran as a prime example of this civilizational state idea in the Middle East. It stands out because, as you know, many current Middle Eastern countries, they kind of came into being much more recently, mostly after the Ottoman Empire broke apart after World War I. You look at Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. These were often Ottoman lands turned into British or French mandates. The boundaries were sometimes, described as accidents of history drawn by outsiders, which helps explain why pan-Arab nationalism was such a big deal mid-century, trying to create unity across these newer lines. But Iran's path is totally different. It wasn't carved out post-WWI. It's got this ancient lineage stretching way back.
Exactly right. Iran, or Persia, as it was known for much of its history, was never actually part of the Ottoman Empire. That's a huge difference right there. It's maintained this distinct civilizational character throughout history, a cultural continuity that many neighbors just don't have in the same way, and not because it hasn't faced challenges. I mean, the list of invaders is staggering. Greeks, Islamic conquests, Mongols, Turkic groups, later colonial pressures, yet through all that turmoil, this core Persian identity endured. It kept coming back.
And the scale of some of those invasions was just devastating, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely devastating. Take the Mongol invasions in the 13th century. Some estimates suggest Persia's population dropped by maybe 50, even 60% or more. There is an Iranian historian, Rashid al-Din, writing at the time. He suggested numbers might have gone from, say, 2.5 million down to maybe 250,000, just catastrophic losses from killing and famine. And then the Timurid invasions later. Millions more killed, enslaved, forced out. To bounce back from that level of destruction, it really speaks to a kind of deep inherent strength, a civilizational resilience.
That's hard to even comprehend.
It is. And you see echoes of this resilience even in modern times. Think about the Iran-Iraq War. 8 years long, 1980 to 88, brutal. And Iraq had massive international backing. You know, the U.S., the Soviets, UK, France, lots of Arab states. Iran, on the other hand, was almost completely isolated. They were hit with chemical weapons by Iraq, faced overwhelming odds, but they held on, they endured. It feels like another example of that deep civilizational memory, that fortitude, allowing it to withstand things that might just break states with shallower roots.
It really paints a picture of Iran as something more than just a modern nation-state, absorbing all that history, those blows, and yet persisting. And you think about its history, the sheer grandeur of it. The Achaemenid Empire, the Sasanians, the Safavids, even the Pahlavis more recently.
Yeah.
These weren't small entities. Plus, it has this incredibly rich, distinct culture.
Yeah.
Its own literature, poetry, architecture, a whole cultural feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's unique. It really reinforces that point. From the sources, Iran wasn't just an accident of history after World War I. It's got this living, potent civilizational memory.
So, okay, what's the takeaway from all this? Why does this deep historical memory matter today, especially in, say, international relations?
Well, the core message coming through the sources is pretty direct. It says, history shows that while Iran is not invincible and has been defeated and invaded many times, Iran has always regathered itself and struck back.
Right, that resilience theme again. Exactly. And this leads to a crucial distinction, especially for you, the listener, trying to make sense of current events or perhaps preparing for UPSC. The sources argue pretty strongly that a regime change in Iraq, Syria, and Libya was sufficient to dismantle those countries. However, that would not be so in the case of Iran. Why? Well, the argument is because those other states were, as we discussed, more recent political creations. Their foundations weren't as deep. Iran being this ancient civilization with that powerful memory, that continuity, it runs much deeper than just the current government.
So the structure itself is more resilient.
That's the implication. The sources conclude, and it's a strong statement, even if a regime change is forced in Iran, the country is unlikely to end up like Iraq or Libya. Iran might be put down, but it cannot be erased. Now, obviously, that's an interpretation based on historical patterns, not a political prediction or endorsement. But it highlights the power of this civilizational factor. And understanding that factor, that deep memory, is absolutely vital if you want to navigate the complexities of geopolitics today. It gives you a much more nuanced view, essential for current affairs, IR studies, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And thinking about all this, it really leaves you with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? If civilizations carry these incredibly deep memories, holding on to identities and even grievances for centuries, millennia, well, what forgotten lessons from our shared human past might still be out there waiting? And maybe more crucially, how could uncovering those lessons actually shape our future? It makes you think differently about history and current events, for sure.
It really does. And going beyond just the surface level, looking at these deeper historical and cultural currents, that's where real insight often lies, I think, connecting the past to the present.
Well said. And look, if this deep dive gave you some valuable perspective, perhaps for your general knowledge or specifically for your UPSC prep, please do give us a like. And subscribe to the deep dive so you don't miss future discussions. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments, any questions or reflections on this whole idea of civilizational memory. Your engagement really helps us keep bringing you these important, critically discussed topics. It helps us all stay informed.